Hi everyone, this story is about Alice. Alice is an excellent tester. Excellent testing is hard to describe. You only find out what it is when you see it. So here is what I've seen. Here are 18 characteristics of Alice's testing excellence. Alice knows that quality is subjective. She knows that quality is value to some people. She understands that a bug is something that threatens this value. So she acts like a sociologist who looks for different problems for different people, because different people will perceive one and the same software as having different levels of quality. Alice understands that our thinking errors can become software errors when we aren't aware of our cognitive biases. Therefore, she looks for bugs in the mind of people. So she acts like a psychologist who delves into the mind of people to analyze their thinking, because she knows that most of people's knowledge is in people's heads. Alice knows that automated repetitive checking is important because the software constantly and rapidly evolves. But she understands that automation requires maintenance. So she acts like a controller who carefully controls the benefit to cost ratio of automated checks to not get drowned in maintenance efforts. Alice sees human testers at the center of testing, not machines. She considers tools as something that can accelerate, extend, and enhance testing, but she knows the tools do not eliminate the need for human thinking. So she doesn't blame tools for the poor tests she performs. She acts like a leader who holds herself responsible and accountable for her testing. Alice knows that the value of any testing practice depends on its context. She understands that testing is not a talent, but a set of skills that can be learned. So she acts like a chameleon who equips herself with a great variety of testing techniques to be able to adapt to new unknown environments fast. Alice knows that her testing models aren't the software. She understands that they are simplified representations that hide complexity. She's aware that these models might be flawed simplifications that result from her flawed mental model of the software. So she acts like her own best critique who questions her own models in testing to not get fooled by them. Alice knows that testing is more than just checking the specification. She compares the actual software to its specification and to its idea. She evaluates the purpose of the software too. So she acts like an astronomer who not only uses a microscope to evaluate the software from a small scale technical perspective, but also uses a telescope to judge the value of the software from a large scale conceptual perspective. Alice knows that those who cannot learn from history are doomed to repeat it. She looks back to the mistakes she has made, she identifies patterns of failures, extracts lessons learned, and shares them with her fellow testers. So she acts like a historian who analyzes her past testing to improve her future testing. Alice knows that excellent testing is never done by one single person, but by a group of people. She understands that knowledge comes in many different flavors. So she acts like a guide who actively involves, guides, and advises other people in testing by stimulating them to continuously think critically about the software. Alice knows that the time needed for testing is always infinitely larger than the time available. So she prioritizes her testing activities and knows that she cannot prove the software right, only wrong. And therefore she thinks of falsification instead of verification. So she acts like a realist who knows that she can only prove the presence of bugs, but not their absence. Alice knows that testing is learning. So whenever she runs out of test ideas, she suspects that she probably hasn't learned enough about the software. She's aware that her test success is not defined by the number of her test cases, but by the quality of her test ideas. So she acts like an experimentalist who considers tests as experiments that challenge conjectures, opinions, and various different perspectives about the software. Alice knows that the knowledge, goals, and experiences of her stakeholders are not identical to hers. So she ties the risks she is uncovering to their objectives, needs, and goals. She's trying to wear the stakeholders' shoes by looking at the risks from their vantage point. So she thinks like a stakeholder to enrich the way she assesses and prioritizes risks to get a broader picture of the overall risk profile. Alice knows that she cannot expect answers to questions she didn't ask. She suspects that she probably has answers that might be wrong and beliefs that might not be true, and therefore she keeps asking before she assumes something. So she acts like a curious little kid who never stops asking because she knows that curiosity is what fuels great testing. Alice knows that if she doesn't have any questions about the risks in the software, then there is no reason to test at all. And if she has at least one such question, then she will assess whether her tests cost more to perform than the answer will be worth. So she acts like an accountant who balances the need to mitigate risk against the risk of trying to gather too much information about the software. Alice knows that certainty is absurd, so she is skeptical about what she knows about the software, and she knows that she will never know everything. She focuses on what she doesn't know about the software and doesn't just settle with what she currently knows. So she acts like a cosmic skeptic who knows that great testing is just a byproduct of continuous critical thinking. Alice knows that testing is about making people aware of problems. She understands that this is a socially difficult task because problems are something negative at a first glance. So she communicates these problems with modesty and empathy. She acts like a good old friend who reduces people's ignorance without embracing arrogance. Alice describes the status of the software in terms of what it does, how it works, and how it might not work. She describes her testing activity in terms of what has been tested, what has not been tested yet, and what won't be tested at all. She describes the quality of testing in terms of the successes she achieved and obstacles that impeded her testing. So she acts like a storyteller who knows that testing requires doing testing and describing testing. Alice knows that she cannot assure quality in the same way a doctor cannot assure health. She understands that her primary objective is to collect quality-related information about the software to enable other people to make better informed decisions. So she considers herself as an assistant that neither does quality assurance nor quality control, but rather quality assistance. Now, this list could go on and on and on forever, but you get the point. Alice is a cocktail of testing excellence. She performs testing in a fast, inexpensive, credible, and accountable way. That's my naive notion of excellent testing. Thank you so much.